Hey everybody, it's me, JTJ. I'm here today doing another King of the Hill review. Today's episode I'm reviewing is Junkie Business. And yes, it's that episode. This episode was directed by Sydney Tang and, as per usual, supervised directed by Wesley Archer. And this episode was written by Jim Dotrieve. And as per usual, it was story edited by the late great Johnny Hardwick. And as per usual again, it was created by Mike Judge and Greg Daniels. And I don't know if this counts as a guest star, but the guy who played Leon was voiced by Brent Forster. He was on the Ben Stiller show, by the way. Not really that famous of a show. I never actually seen it myself. So the episode starts off with Hank basically getting Employee of the Month, and Buck puts him in charge of hiring the new Strickland employee who... So he passes on this pretty woman who was more than qualified to sell grills. The one problem he had with her was, for one thing, it was the 90s and Hank is stuck in his old ways. And one fact, he didn't hire her basically because, let's be honest, he was pretty attracted to her. Plus, also, the fact is, she failed his test, supposedly. His test being his questions he was going to ask in the interview, and she didn't know jack about the stuff he asked her, which, quite frankly, I wouldn't worry about stuff like that when if I was ever put in a position to interview someone for a job. Those things don't matter to me. If I won't click with someone socially who I'm hiring, that's fine. As long as you're qualified to do your job, you're fine by my book. And second, Leon walked into Hank's office. It was pretty obvious he was a junkie. The first thing he says is, "Oh, Cowboys, cool." I don't think he was a Cowboy fan. I think he just said that because it was the first thing he saw and he thought that would pique Hank's interest. I mean, all he had to do was say that and Hank was already dazzled by this guy. And then we get into Hank discovering more how Leon was a junkie. And what winds up happening is Hank fires him, but unfortunately, because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which, no offense, but I have no idea how a fucking drug addict counts as somebody with a disability, and why you can't really, I don't know why you can't fire someone for being a drug addict, even if they went to rehab and sobered up. In my book, that wouldn't be enough to get to be allowed to have your job back, because that's just my opinion. And basically, aren't you basically fucking hindering this guy by forcing him to have that job back that he's clearly not qualified for? This guy might be more qualified to be a busboy at a diner, if anything, rather than a propane salesman. That's just my opinion. And then we get into the episode, which I want to point out this one scene where Peggy gets at, and she kind of gets mad about it, and then she's all, nobody shushes me. I'm like, that kind of reminds me of how I used to act in high school, because I used to have issues in high school with people shushing me, and the football team put an end to that. Since I played on the football team, they kind of ganged up on me in the locker room, and I don't want to say how, but they set me straight about the whole thing, and basically they just didn't want another Nikki on their hands, which is a story I'll tell on my other channel on another day. But for right now, basically we just kind of cut to Hank figuring out a loophole so he could get Leon fired, which was Hank quit and Leon was able to be fired, which was pretty funny how Buck just said it. He's like, oh no, not you, you're fired. But what would I rate this episode? I would rate it a 6.7. It was funny, but it was just kind of bland in certain areas of the episode for my taste. Not gonna say where, it's just kind of wasn't my cup of tea entirely. I mean, I thought it was funny, the junkie scenes, but other than that, it wasn't my favorite. But till next time, stay tight.